Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a creator request, which is where a smaller band gets in contact with me and asks me to check out their work. Got an email, said reaching out about an incredible UK rock band called Empyre who will release their second full-length album, Relentless, on March 31st. Hey, my calendar says today's March 31st. If you like this, you can go check out their full album afterwards. If you're unfamiliar with them, Empyre hails from Northampton, UK. They got a very distinct sound that melds elements of intense atmospheric music and anthemic stadium rock with incredibly talented soaring vocals. The band released their debut album, Self-Aware, to mass critical acclaim in 2019 and were signed to K-Scope in 2020. So, let's get in on this. We're going to be checking out the song Relentless from Empyre. See what's going on.
Watch them torn apart, sinking too far, falling down and bleeding out, rolling while I run and now they're screaming out. Watch them torn apart, sinking too far, falling down and bleeding out, rolling while I run and now they're screaming out.
Yeah, I like all the embellishments on that opening line. Really changing things up with this riff, though. And go back up. No, so we got a 4-bar.
You don't wanna know how senseless I've become. I've no feeling. I'm just numb. I won't be denied. Now I'll overthrow. You'll be left behind. I'll stand alone. I'll watch them torn apart, sinking too far, falling down and bleeding out, crawling while I run and now they're screaming out, smothered by the arms of failure, suffocated by what made you, every waking moment torn apart.
Really interesting that they're using the same type of variation on our fourth chord for both the verse and the chorus now. To just really sit in on this tension and reside in it a little bit for more emphasis to build into the return home.
You are nothing more than reckless and undone. Where's your future when I'm gone? And I won't compromise.
I do like that Tom Heavy riff though in our verse.
Control.
Bass just chugging away down there.
You've been left behind. I'll stand alone.
Really interesting, the bass is the only one playing a straight pattern. Everybody else has that syncopated accent beat.
Sinking too far, falling down and bleeding out, crawling while I run and now they're screaming out, smothered by the arms of failure, suffocated by what made you, every waking moment torn apart, sinking too far, falling down and bleeding out, crawling while I run and now they're screaming out, smothered by the arms
I almost wonder, I mean, it's a single, right? And it is the single from this album, possibly. I'm curious if there's another single on this one because there is a lot of stuff in there that shows me potential. But that track was missing something. And it could just be me, too. What I'm expecting from it, what I bring to the listening experience. But well, let's get into it. Let's talk about what they are doing, and then we'll flip it around, and maybe we'll try to figure out what I think is missing, or maybe where my expectations went wrong. I think would be a better way of putting that. What is this? Oh, so what do we got going on in here? I really liked the opening, the intro. We had a chord-based guitar coming in at the beginning with the vocals. We had another guitar that came. I think there were two more guitar lines, but it could have just been one guitarist playing two moving ideas that weren't exactly connected. But we had two embellishing ideas to build off of the chord progression that we had. These embellishing ideas were not melodic well, they were melodic, but they weren't melodies. They weren't there to push the song forward or to tell a story. They were sort of there to augment and embellish on the chord progression itself. Of course, the vocals were our lead melody at this point, and all of this came together beautifully and effortlessly. We have this really nice moving chordal pattern. It was composed of single notes, if I remember, working with that homophonic chordal idea of playing individual notes in a chord and having all the notes played back to back give the impression of the chord itself. The brain kind of puts all that information together and says, oh, that's the chord. That's the emotion we're working with. Even if you don't necessarily know note names or chord names or whatever, you feel the emotion of it, even though they're not just playing them all straight at the same time. And then you have these little glitters, the sparklings of these other guitar notes coming in. And it's just a really beautiful intro with an exceptionally passionate vocal delivery right here. There's power, there's air pressure, there's a bit of rasp and compression on the vocals, and it just comes through as something um, really powerful. It made me think we were going to go somewhere exceptionally big. Um, and we continued on with this slow burn idea. This led into the tom run, if I remember correctly, in our verse, which I love. I love tom-based drum patterns. I don't know what it is about them. They're just gorgeous. Anytime I hear it, I'm like, yep, I'm already loving it. I don't know what it is about tom-based drum patterns. They're good. Um, and we are introduced to the key element in our rhythmic approach here, which is the syncopated, accented hits from both the drums. They accent specific hits, but they're constantly going, and the guitars, which tend to play nothing for bursts of time and then come in with an accented hit, usually with a little embellishing idea before it. Diddle-a-down, diddle-a-down. A nice little, like 3 or 4 notes. Yeah, like 3 notes before it that kind of dance around the note we're going to hit and then land on it with a staccato note to really emphasize the accent there. And this is syncopated against the beat so that it is not rigid. It's not like every beat four. And the syncopation gives it a bit of groove, especially when it's played against the constant playing in the drums, but especially against the rigid playing in the bass, which is, as far as my ear could tell, accentless. It was more or less a metronome of the bass of the root tone sitting underneath the band. And so you have this really rigid, non-moving, non-accented, non-syncopated, constant rhythm underneath everything. And so the drums are kind of working with that. We have that constant eighth note coming out of the drums, but the drums also give us the accents, and then the guitars are accent only with a little bit of embellishment on it. So we really have this syncopated accent pattern against this rigid eighth note idea, and that creates a lot of the groove in our verse. Um, and this embellishing idea, the few notes that we hit before the accent, this is something we are going to hear a lot of. And this accent pattern is something we're going to hear a lot of. You really gotta be in for it. It permeates the entire track. From here, we move into the chorus, which bumps up the intensity a little bit by giving the guitars chords to play. We're still loosely working with that accent pattern, but it is not as prominent anymore. The vocals are continuing on with more air pressure, more presence, more power, more passion. And the vocals are easily, at least for me, the highlight in this specific track. They're they're what keep the song moving forward and what keep the intensity up for me. The chord progression that we explored in the verse, which was a 4-chord progression, we continue to explore in the chorus. However, there's a slight alteration to it. At the end of our 4th chord, instead of looping back to the first, we have 2 more bars. Yeah, I think it's 2. Yeah, because it's a bit of a slower tempo. We have 2 more bars of that same final chord, which happens to be a leading chord. There's a lot of tension to it, and the band in the chorus doesn't want that to resolve yet. So they lean into it for an extra 2 bars and really allows it to sit in resonance and feel that tension before pulling back down to our first chord, resolving it all a little bit. This is where you may have noticed I didn't talk about everything that happened in the verse. Our 4th bar of the verse, not the 4th bar, the 4th chord of the verse kicks things up a little bit. We move from that spacious, ornamented, syncopated idea in the guitars to something a bit more energetic with a ton of movements and a lot of those embellishing ideas into accented hits, much more frequently than we did before. There's this energy that this 4th chord brings with it, always, no matter what, and that is reflected in the chorus as well, when we also up the syncopation and rhythmic intensity in the guitars to a new energy when we hit this section. But interestingly, we don't do it until we hit the extension. After we do our 4 chords and we get that 4th chord extension, the 2 more bars that we weren't expecting, that is when we shift over to the higher intensity rhythmic riffing. So both the verse and the chorus follow the same chord progression. They follow the same ebb and flow of rising and falling energy. They follow the same intensity pattern. And as far as the bass goes, they follow the exact same idea. It's all pedal tone hits until the extension, in which the bass follows the rhythmic pattern of the rest of the band. So we end up with a track where the only difference between the verse and the chorus is moving from complete syncopation with a lot of spaciousness and the toms filling that space to the guitars playing chords and filling that space. So the drums don't have to do that as much, and they switch to cymbals and snare. There is a volume difference there, but the volume difference is primarily implied. I was watching the audio mixer and they're pretty much the same volume. It's more of a perceived quietness and perceived loudness there. And that's one situation where I think volume dynamics would really work, but I also say that as somebody who is not a rock producer, who also is not a generally rock-oriented listener. It's very possible that if they actually did use dynamics there, people would complain about the verse being too quiet or something. And it's possible I'm just disconnected from the general rock audience. Although this idea of loudness of consistently being at the same volume is something that pervades a lot of modern genres, or a lot of genres in modern music. So it could just be that I'm a bit disconnected from your average music listener in general. But I do feel quite strongly that the chorus doesn't punch the way it needs to, doesn't have the impact it's supposed to, because the one element that should actually be dynamic here isn't. When your chord progression doesn't change, when your instrumentation doesn't change, when your riffage barely changes, you're just adding more of what you already had, you need some sort of contrast to really amp it up. And you went for the illusion of the contrast rather than the actual contrast, which, at least to me, makes the chorus sound a bit flat to my ears. Like I mentioned, it's possible people hear this and absolutely love it and have no problems with it. I'm also listening to it actively, orchestrally, more so than casually. So I'm listening for things like this where your average listener isn't. Um, we do this back and forth though. First chorus, first chorus. We hit the bridge, and the bridge is the chorus with a solo on top of it. Was it the chorus? It was either the chorus or the verse. I can't remember what the I'm pretty sure the drums were wide open, so they were doing the chorus, but I can't remember if the guitars were doing a syncopated idea or the chords. Either way, we had taken music we had already written, put the solo over it. Pretty typical stuff right here. It's efficient writing. Um, and the solo was good. It showed off the skills, the chops a little bit. I just didn't feel that it was the bridge is a lot of things. The bridge could be so many things in a track. It can be the turning point where we do something completely different. It can be the peak where you hit your highest point, or lowest if you're hardcore or deathcore and you're going for your breakdown, right? It could also be your slowest point if you're a doom metal band or something. Um, Here, the bridge was just more. And that's fine. It's a perfectly usable bridge. It just didn't stand out. The guitar solo felt very similar to the melodies that the vocals had used. They were in a similar range that the vocals had used. The music underneath the stuff we had already heard. So it wasn't different in any musical element. It was different in a textural element. We had a different melodic instrument, a different timbre playing our melody. And once again, it is a type of contrast, but it is not something that, at least to me, hits. It doesn't have enough contrast to be distinct. And so the bridge kind of bled over into more of the verse and chorus, and we came out of that and did another. We did another chorus. I can't remember if we did another verse or not. Like I said, a lot of this kind of bleeds together. It's all very samey. And I think that's going to be my criticism here, is that the riffage is good. I love the drum patterns. The energy is here. It's very catchy. You really have that anthemic ability in your composition. Um, the vocals are very charismatic. I'm a sucker for them, honestly. Everything is There's a strong foundation here. Like I said, I see a lot of what's that word I used? Capability. That's not the word I want, but I said it at the beginning. You guys remember, I hope. Potential. All the tools are here to do something great, and unfortunately, it misses the mark just a little bit. And instead of being, a 9 or a 10, it ends up being like a 7. Where it's still really good, very well done. The production's solid, the riffage is solid, the composition's solid, the performance is solid. It just doesn't do anything to keep my attention. It's missing contrast. And even in songs that are rather flat or one note, there's still some element of contrast to them, unless they're going for something purely atmospheric or purely linear, or sorry, cyclical. Like folk music is really big about just having an A section. The point is that the music blends into the background and you listen to the story and the lyrics. Or like post rock, where the atmosphere is more important than the structure. But for something fairly straightforward like this, which is closer to radio rock, you really need something to help the chorus have punch, to give it that memorability, to make it distinct from everything else. And musically, I think that's mostly here. I don't hear anything that a lot of radio rock bands don't do. But the production, I think, is just a hair bit too flat for it. And it's not a lot either. You don't want to go overboard. I'd say even just bumping up the volume of the chorus and maybe increasing it by 5 to 10 BPMs, not enough to really change it, but enough to give it that boost of electricity, would go a long way. It really would. And maybe even putting a bit more compression on the guitar in the chorus might help give that a little bit of bite and distinction to separate it from the rest of the band just a hair bit more and give that section a bit of identity as well. It's really small tweaks, I think, that could elevate this track. Um, but the foundation is there, and I'm going to be keeping an eye on the band and seeing where they go, because I think they have a bright future ahead of them. K-Scope got a really great band on their hands, picking up Empyre last year. So those are my thoughts on Empyre's Relentless. This is where y'all come in. What'd you think of this track? Was there anything that stood out to you? Anything that I touched on you think I didn't go deep enough into? Or maybe you have your own perspective on something. Maybe you think I'm wrong. Maybe you're one of the band members from Empyre and you want to let me know the decisions that went into this, or you want to let me know I'm wrong. I'm just some dude on the internet. I'm open to criticism too, and I'm open to having a dialogue as well. It could be that I misread some of this stuff. Anyways, put all those comments down in the that was a much longer spiel than I usually do. Put that stuff in the comments. Above that, in the description box, usually has links for myself, but instead we'll have links for Empyre here. There's streaming platforms where you can go check out the brand new album that is out today. Merch, websites, social medias, anything I can find from Empyre will be in the description box. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Make sure you head on over to their sites, pages, whatever. Listen to their music, like, subscribe their stuff. Show them some love from Critical Reactions. That wraps it up for today. As usual, tomorrow, album review. Sunday, live stream for the patrons. Monday, we'll be back for next week's theme. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.